Jordan, if you would bring the page up for me for the Crohn's Foundation, where we can just highlight um, some information about Crohn's, because I want people to be aware of when somebody says they have a bowel disease, this doesn't mean that they're making bad food choices. Um, and
Mhm.
I'm going to speak on my illiterate behalf. Jason, feel free to butt in with your professional. But as you had already stated, that there is an increase in bowel disease here. That nearly 1 in 100 Americans are diagnosed. I can tell you right now, within a stone's throw, I know more than that. Um, so
I've heard from a lot of people my age and younger are getting diagnosed with IBD,
and cancer,
and
like colon
colon
cancer,
cancer,
yeah.
and yeah, there's been such an increase in that, and that is so scary.
And
Yeah.
something I want to highlight before we get off here is symptoms that people should definitely not ignore because they're young. Um,
Mhm.
so let's make sure we highlight that before we leave here. Studies show that between 1.5% and 28% of people have it. A first degree relative, such as a parent, child, or sibling. Um, so in that statement, as I said, I know for a fact my mother had it based on exactly what her symptoms were. Um, I never displayed any symptoms like that at all. And then boom, 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 things are happening to my kids. And we found out there's a protein related to this, a genetic piece, which is HLA-B27. And truthfully, just last week I got diagnosed, or not diagnosed, but told that my test came back positive for that. And I don't know if that's a new bit of information that's being released or whatever, but yeah, this disease runs rampant through what I know to be my maternal side of the family. I know nothing about my paternal side. So
Mhm.
that there is this genetic component, and as you said, you were diagnosed and your daughter was diagnosed. This is like crazy. Like, I'm embarrassed that it just feels so new and enlightening to me. Like, holy crap, this can just run in families. I wasn't prepared for that. Um, let's go down a little further here, Jordan. Uh, can affect any part of the. Let's go back. We'll go back. So this here. So when up, just a little higher up the
More
page.
sorry.
There
There.
you go. So the Crohn's disease can affect any part of the GI tract from the mouth to the anus. And so one of the first things we had to learn was, what is your GI tract? You think you know, you don't know, but it's your nose, your mouth, your esophagus, down into your stomach, all the way through your intestines, all the way to the anus. And these are words that, like, when you want to talk about in public, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about my butt. I'm talking about my butt. Um, but it's a disease. It's inflammations. It's ulcers. It's bleeding.
Mhm.
Um, am I missing anything? Like what?
Well, in most cases, in my case specifically, my Crohn's was in my terminal ileum, and for those that don't know, that is the part where the small intestines connects to your colon, and that's also where your body absorbs most of the
Right.
nutrients that you get
Yep.
from your food or your medications. And so when I was diagnosed, um, I don't even know how much I weighed, but it was not enough.
Mhm.
And we found out I was not absorbing anything. I was downing burgers, fries, pizza, like in one sitting, and I was not gaining any weight at all. And we couldn't figure out why. And it's because I was not absorbing anything from any foods I was taking, any medications. So, I mean, it's just crazy how that works
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
were just like sick all the time too. Like
all
there
the
was just
time.
no nutrition being absorbed. She got like really sick with mono when she was like fifth grade. And everything kind of just started to go downhill from there,
Mhm.
health wise. Okay, so Crohn's is the ulceration, as it says there. It can skip or leave normal patches between the intestines. So it's not even that your whole intestine is inflamed, but
Mhm.
if you look up colonoscopies, you can see what healthy tissue looks like and then
Mhm.
what Crohn's tissue looks like. And the best description I can give is like if you ever see somebody with like a fever blister or something, for it almost kind of reminds me of like that.
Yeah, that was a symptom of mine as well. I had sores around my nose and my mouth. I had no idea they were Crohn's. I didn't even know.
Which
I
has
thought it
nothing
was
to do with
acne.
food. Has nothing to
Right.
do with food. What Jason, could you describe the difference between Crohn's and ulcerative colitis?
Yep. So as you said, Crohn's disease can run anywhere in that whole GI tract, and ulcerative colitis is typically, it's just confined to the colon. And that's why, like in my case, removal of the colon was basically, it removed the disease, right? They leave a little piece, for attaching and everything, which they monitor for disease. Sometimes patients who think they have ulcerative colitis might have their colon removed only to find out that they actually have Crohn's. And so then it really didn't help them as much to have the surgery.
Right.
And one thing I do want to make sure that we say is the healthcare providers, the GIs, the specialists for Crohn's and colitis, it is amazing how far things have come and the research that is out there, and the quality of care that we get here in Nebraska, especially. I mean, we have amazing providers in Omaha and Lincoln.
Shout out to Dr. Livingston.
Shout out Midwest GI. I love my clinic. They are incredible. But they really are, though. We have amazing
Shout out
providers
Children's
here.
Hospital. Yeah.
Midwest GI, Nebraska Medicine, CHI, Children's, Boys Town. I mean, we have, and I really hope I don't miss anybody. GI Specialties in Lincoln. We have amazing providers. And so when we talk about frustration, right, with being diagnosed or misdiagnosed or undiagnosed, trust me, they're frustrated too, because it sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes depending on where you start with the process, your family provider may not send you to a GI right away, because some of the symptoms that you're presenting with, it doesn't lead them to think, oh, they have Crohn's.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where, our job as a patient is to make sure that we are as completely transparent as possible when we talk to our doctor.
So, Jason, let me interrupt you here, because I do want to tell parents this part, okay? Speaking about general practitioners and things in your doctor, we were fortunate enough that the doctor Jordan was going to, Lori McGill, was the one to suggest that Jordan get a colonoscopy. And Jordan came to me and said, Mom, they want me to get a colonoscopy. I said, Jordan, you don't need a colonoscopy. Are you kidding me right now? Like, you probably did that. I'm a doctor, And so they called, and there was a lot going on, mind you. There was just too much background to give you to understand why I was in the place that I was in. But going back to my mom had just died and everything. I go, do you feel like you need a colonoscopy? And she just looked me dead in the eye and she goes, yes. And I was like, oh, okay. So we book it. And then it's just her and I, and we go to the colonoscopy, and the prep was awful to watch her to have to go through and everything. But I meet her doctor, Dr. Livingston, and I say to him, ha ha ha, you're probably not going to find anything. So she goes back, he comes out, he opens the curtain, he goes, we found something. And I died on the spot right there, because I was like, oh my God, I told her not to get this. And that's the one and only time I've ever been wrong in my life, but I was way wrong, way, way wrong to speak for my daughter's body. And it was that moment on that I said to Jordan, you're your own advocate. Nobody knows your body but you. You have to learn to speak up for this. And fast forward many years later, when he cracks a joke to my daughter, oh, my son's getting the diagnosis. Did she believe him, or is that? Don't tell your mom I said that. So as parents, I would just put out there, trust your child to lead you. If they say they're not feeling well, to do those tests, because I was way wrong in that. But to your point, general practitioners aren't always going to be able to advocate for that either. And I'm just very grateful we had a doctor that did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are some great resources on the foundation website that talk about partnering with your doctor. It has ideas for questions, for discussions you might want to have with your doctor. All of this can be hard to talk about, right? And so one of the things that I think is really great on the foundation website is there are lots of resources that help you as a patient or a family member of a patient process it, learn how the kinds of conversations you need to have, the kinds of questions you might want to ask, and it is really helpful. And so never be afraid to really dive in and search for information. I mean, the foundation's always here. You can always call on me directly, call me, email me, whatever, and we can have conversations. But there is amazing